Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our first Q&A session, a live Q&A session. Here at ChatterBug, we thought it will be a great time to put on this opportunity to communicate with some of you guys out there that are currently training to be speech and language therapists. I myself have been on that journey, so I know what it's like. So we wanted to use this opportunity to give you the chance to ask us some questions, whatever they may be. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Asma Khanum, and I'm the managing director of a social enterprise called ChatterBug Speech and Language Therapy Service based in Leeds. We are a national organisation, but we do work across the country, and we are commissioned by the local authority, the NHS, lots of schools, all over the country to provide a wide range of speech and language therapy services. And we absolutely love being involved in the training of speech and language therapy students. I think since September, we've had about 20 plus students on placement with us, which is amazing. And we want to be able to do our bit to contribute towards the training of speech and language therapists. So I'll get cracking, and I hope you have some questions for me. Feel free to just pop those questions into the box and I will answer them as best as I can. We have had some questions also emailed over to us, and I will go through some of these as well. But I hope this is that you'll take up, and don't be shy, ask us questions. Okay, so I will always remember actually from my placement educator saying to me, we provide these golden nuggets of gems of information, so you should write them down. And I used to make sure I always took advantage of all my placement educators' brains and asked them lots of questions. So please do. So just to get us all warmed up, I'm going to just tell you a little bit of background about ChatterBug as an organisation, who we are. I've told you a little bit, but I will tell you a bit more about our journey. Okay, so and I've made a few notes for myself. Okay, so as I explained, ChatterBug is a social enterprise based in the north, in Leeds. I was one of the original founders. And now we have a number of sites across all over the UK. And we are a recognised NHS business partner. And I explained that we're commissioned by schools, local authorities, the NHS, and anybody that needs our services. So we have a team of approximately hovering between 48 and 50 staff, clinical staff that work for the organisation. Sorry, that includes our admin team as well. We also, and within that mix, we also have a team of communication and language specialists who are not speech and language therapists, but have additional training and experience working in the therapy industry or in the education industry, and have completed our bespoke training program, and have all this additional information that allows us to provide high quality intervention. In fact, quite a lot of our CALs are trainee SLTs as well, or come from a teaching background. So it's a great step up into the SLT role. So a little bit more about us and us as a social enterprise. So we have 3 social objectives. These, we call them our 3 R's. And the first one is to raise awareness of the impact of speech and language difficulties. So a few years ago, speech and language difficulties were not very well known. There were some aspects of speech and language difficulties that people were aware of. People are a lot more aware of the range of speech and language difficulties there are. But one of the things that's still not fully understood is the lifelong impact speech and language difficulties can have. So we're really focused on raising awareness about the lifelong impact it can have and continue to have. We're really passionate about recruiting and training and providing a high quality workforce. So that is our second R. And our third R is to reduce our environmental impact. So pretty much from the beginning of our beginning of when the company was set up, we've been paperless. We've been a paper light, then a paperless organization, and we do everything we can as an organization to reduce our carbon footprint and contribute to our local communities and engage with them in whatever ways we can. And we're always exploring new ways of working. So our vision is to be the leading provider of speech and language therapy services, known for delivering high quality, evidence-based intervention that provides real results. We believe that the client needs to be in the center of everything that we do, and we need to tailor our input to motivate them and help them achieve their goals. So for us, it's all about having that real impact and providing those real results to bring about the change. And we, as an organization, we place a strong strong focus on our ethos and values, which are open, connected, dependable, and fortitude. And what you'll find when you work for an organization like ours is those values are intertwined into everything that we do. So it's intertwined in terms of how we interact with anybody within and outside of the organization. It's about how we deliver our therapy. It's about how we communicate with all of our stakeholders, our service users. So it really is an integral part of us as an organization and who we are as people that work for ChatterBug. And a quick timeline, because actually this is your Q&A session, so I want some questions coming from you, and I want to tackle some of the questions that people have sent in. So we were established in 2008, and it was established as a one-man band. And very quickly we became registered as a company with about 4 schools in 2012. And today we are, as I explained, we're a team of between 45 and 50, somewhere between those numbers, and across 4 main locations, but other smaller pockets. And we're commissioned by over, I would say, 80 plus schools across Leeds, Leicester, Scarborough. We're contracted by the local authority to provide the speech language therapy service to the borough of Holton. And we have a fantastic business team as well as a clinical team. Now, I'm going to ask you all a question because I want to get an idea of where people are studying and training, and I'll tell you a little bit more about where I trained. So where are people training currently? Where are people from? I wonder if we have people local, or is it further afield? So I'm genuinely curious. So I trained at UCL, University College London, and it was a very intense training and very hands-on, very appreciated the experience that I gained, and it was over a period of 4 years. So what about the rest of you? Tell me, where are you all training, and how are you finding your training? And I know obviously COVID has had a massive impact in terms of the kind of experiences you can gain. So we, as an organization, are really interested to know how we can support you in getting the right support to set you up in your career. Hello, so we have Georgia here from Leeds Beckett, and it's going well. Fantastic, that's great. So if you just pop it in the chat box, I think just here on the corner of the screen, where you are studying. Right, so shall I move on to some of the questions? So the first question we had is, what is a typical day? Oh, great. We have somebody from Sophie from Sheffield. Hello, Sophie. Hello, Georgia. Okay, so a typical day, and I want to give you a balanced view because when I trained, after my training, I have also worked in the NHS, and I started my career in London. I started working in Sure Start, the old Sure Start, gives away my age, but I have also worked across the country for various NHS services as well. So I'll try and give you both perspectives, but I am definitely 110% ChatterBug therapist, and hopefully I'll give you a bit of a flavour of what it's like to be in ChatterBug. So as an SLT working for ChatterBug, most of our staff that are in our non-NHS commission service work in schools. And I'll explain the difference. So their starting day generally starts at 9 o'clock in a school. And they see, if they're doing a day of just initial assessments, they may see between 3 and 4 children for initial assessments, and that will depend on the complexity of the case. And that then provides that important time to be able to then write your reports as well. If you're doing a day of therapy, you may see up to 6 sessions. Again, it depends very much on the type of session it is. This is actually fairly typical. These numbers are fairly typical of most NHS services, I would say. Some have expectation to see more, some, but I don't know of any at the top of my head at the moment. So these are quite typical, tried and tested numbers. You may have a mixed day, so at ChatterBug you would have a mixed day of assessments, reviews, and therapy. If you're working in an NHS service, unless it's a school commission service, it may be mostly consultative. If you're working in a school commission service, it may be very similar to this. So our staff in Holton, their work is very assessment focused and very assessment heavy. So I would say that one of the biggest advantages that a lot of therapists say about working for ChatterBug is that it provides that really good grounding, good start to your career, because it's a bit like, I guess one of the things when I first qualified that really used to flummox me is that as speech and language therapists, we're expected, if you're working in a consultative role, we're expected to provide advice on therapy approaches that we may never have delivered ourselves. And it's a bit like asking a teacher to train somebody to teach without actually having had that teaching experience. And we wouldn't do that. So I think having the opportunity to deliver therapy is absolutely key for you to really flourish in your career. So however you do that, whether you do it in a role similar to this, whether you get placement experience to deliver therapy and see therapy through from beginning to end, is really, really important. And I know placements, depending on which university you go to, placements across the country are very variable. So some placements are more hands-on, and others are less so. So everybody's experience is going to be slightly different. But I would say take some time out to reflect on where you are in terms of that journey, in terms of your experience and what experience you need. But getting that great grounding in delivering intervention and learning from that will make you a lot more confident as a therapist going forward. Okay, so the other important thing that a lot of people ask us about the typical day is admin time. Now, for us as an organization, admin time is built into your session. So you will have, so for example, if you have a session that lasts an hour, 30 minutes of that, 25 to 30 minutes of that may be hands-on working with that child or that client. And the rest of the time you would use for writing up your case notes, doing any prep, doing any handover to the member of staff. So Yeah, so you would build it into that. That's how we do it. There is a term called admin batching. Now, some SLTs like to batch their admin. We definitely advise against that. And the batching of admin refers to seeing all your clients and then having an admin day at some later point to write the reports. And actually, the reason why we advise against that is because we want our staff, so our clients, to be able to get that information as quickly as possible. And we feel that the quicker we do it, the sooner we do it after having actually seen the client, then obviously the better quality of the information. So but there are different ways of doing that. The next question actually falls quite nicely into what I'm just talking about now, which is top tips for time management to balance therapy and admin. So tip number 1, diary management. For every client that you see, allocate that additional 30-minute slot for case notes, transitioning, setting up for the next client. So allow an hour. I think that really works. If you see every client as an hour, and also anything that you do for that particular client should come out of their allocated slot. So if you need to go and speak to a member of staff about Jack, take 15 minutes out of that allocated slot. That really helps you to manage your day. I would say, and my next top tip is to plan for the day, not just one client. And that way, by that I mean you can really maximize your planning time. So what you want to be able to do is try and use the same resources for as many of your clients you can in that day. Obviously, as long as it's appropriate. Now, my absolute go-to are books. Like, books are so light, they're so versatile, and there's so many things that you can target with books. So you can target vocabulary, you can do narrative work, you can talk about specific concepts. But the key to doing this is really fully understanding what it is that you're targeting. And when I've carried out observations, I find that people haven't always thought about, they know what their objectives of the session are, but they haven't thought about that wider goal. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What is it that I want that client to be able to do? So if that child is really motivated by wanting to perform a line in a play, in an assembly, is your target of working on pronouns going to help them achieve that goal? Really think about what is the end goal for that client and understand why it is you're doing what you're doing. Okay, tip 3. Okay, work on your case notes. Use a set structure if you don't so already, and make sure that you have a clear summary and a plan. Write them so that when you're writing your case notes as well, write them in a way that you can lift information out of your case notes to place into your reports. That will save time there. Now, in our organization, we use SOAP notes, but you will have been exposed to something. The main thing for me, I would say, is that there needs to be a very clear summary or a plan. And the rule that I always use when writing case notes is, if I was to walk out and be hit by a bus, God forbid, then will somebody be able to pick up my case notes and carry on working with this child? And write your notes in that way that somebody needs to be able to pick this case note up and know exactly what I'm doing and why, and be able to continue that input. And that will make it easier for your own planning. So that's my 3rd tip. Tip number 4, I only have 5. Tip number 4, be strict with your conversations. Now, we've all been talking about how smoother our days are since we moved over to telehealth. And that's because we're not in schools. So we're not being distracted by lots of other things going in schools and having those conversations. Now, What I would say is that if you're working in a school commission service, one of my tips would be that building those relationships with schools and staff in schools is very, very important. So you should take time to do that. Don't be so focused on completing your tasks that you don't make time to build those relationships, because if you have good relationships, they'll be more accommodating and understanding of what it is that you're trying to achieve. But be strict, like I said, so take that time out of the session time and be aware that you need to have that conversation so you can have those meaningful conversations at a time that doesn't impact too much on your admin. And the final tip, and I think I've kind of said this before, don't lose sight of your objectives. Too many SLTs just get so absorbed in playing the game and whatever game or activity they're doing with the child, but don't forget what the ultimate goal and objective is, because if you keep that objective right at the forefront, you'll be able to adapt and respond to what the child is doing and get even more from your session. So an example I would give is if you are trying to work on a tabletop activity and the child has very poor attention and listening, then think about how you can modify that so you can get everything you want out of that session for that child, help them to work on those targets, but still it not overrunning. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please ask me a question in the chat box. Okay. So, right, actually, I'm going to give you guys a minute. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask me from everything that I've said already? No. Okay, good. That means I have been clear. Fantastic. Okay, so my next question is, now this comes up a lot, is how much support is given to newly qualified therapists. Now, obviously, I can't speak for every single service, but I know it is variable. And there is the RCSLT guideline of what the support should look like. So, but I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do as an organization. So you'll be allocated a line manager who will communicate your induction with you. Now, we believe that in our organization, one of our core values is fortitude. And we believe that in order to provide the best care and provide the right care for our service users, sometimes that means we have to be brave and we have to try things that we might not necessarily feel comfortable with. So we believe that in order to prepare our staff for that, we want our induction to be very, very hands-on. So your line manager will communicate with you what that induction is going to be. And that will be very clear. And it usually covers a period of a week to 2 weeks, but we know that everyone is coming to us with different experience, so people will get to that point at different levels. So that's the first thing to say. And you'll receive daily informal support either from your line manager or your clinical supervisor or your colleagues. And some of this informal support, and this is in line with the RCSLT guidelines as well, it may be emails. We use something called Hangouts, which is a chat forum. But then you will also, on top of that, you will have weekly formal meetings, which will alternate between a line manager who's very much looking at your well-being and how you're progressing within the organization, and a clinical supervisor who will support you with your clinical decision making and your caseload management. All of your reports will be checked by a clinical supervisor as well. So you get that additional support. So you get loads of feedback and support via appraisal of your reports as well and your therapy programs. And obviously we appreciate that everyone is different and will achieve those milestones at a different point. You also will have access to a group clinical supervision as well. So that's usually a group of peers. And you can ask for supervision as often as you like on top of what we're providing. That's our core. However, you have to remember we ask you to take responsibility because everybody is different, and we know that we all learn different ways, and the amount of information everyone needs is different as well. So we very much are led by you. So it needs to be up to you to ask, and your clinicians are there and available. On top of that, we have our journal clubs. We have AP drop-ins. So these are our advanced practitioners run drop-ins. So you can come and ask additional questions from our specialists as well. We have CPD days. We have a minimum of 4 CPD days a year, but quite often there'll be more. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to all of our clinicians with a roundup of all the latest evidence and latest research, but summarized in a bite-sized chunk that you can implement into your practice. As an organization, we also use the solution-focused approach to supervision. And we believe that the reflection is key to creating confident SLTs. So we will challenge you to think about your barriers and support you, and your group will also support you to come up with your answers as well. There's a big focus on well-being within the organization. It's always been very, very important to us, and we've tried lots of different things. And at the moment, we have 2 monthly chat and cake sessions that involve talking about well-being strategies, and we also have well-being groups as well. So that's all about all the support that we provide. And there's probably things in there that I haven't mentioned. In fact, I haven't mentioned our core skills programs. So we have a series of internal workshops and training modules that we've put together on various topics, from how to write a good clinical report to how to deliver colorful semantics or shape coding, and they're there and available to you to view as often as you need to upskill yourself. Okay, so that was a big one, and I covered lots there. Is there any questions that people would like to ask at this point about support for newly qualified? No. Oh, I haven't mentioned competencies. So in terms of competencies, what we've done as an organization is we've created a framework that allows you to capture your competencies. Now, this isn't to replace the RCSLT reflection log. This is to help you to gather the right content to add to your reflection log. And it gives you examples of the kind of things that you can add. And we have regular slots within the year that you can submit competencies to clinical supervisors or line managers to review to help you complete your competency framework. Okay, so one of the questions I have here is, what do you love and dislike most about your role? Now, I think that you probably wanted to ask an NQP this role, but I'm not an NQP, so I'll tell you what I love and what I don't like. There's a question. Okay, so for your NQP year, do you have to work anywhere specific, like where there's a big team of SLTs, or can you go straight into working somewhere like a school? Okay, so you can, yes, definitely. Not necessarily talking about ChatterBug. I do know of organizations that employ NQPs who just go straight working into the school environment. We have actually employed SLTs who started their careers in that way. There are pluses and minuses to everything in life, and it's not something that works for everyone, is what I would say. If you are going down that route, I would say make sure that you're aware of the level of support and supervision that you will receive and who that will be from. So we've provided supervision to SLTs that have been employed in that capacity. That's one way to bridge that gap, because obviously teachers view speech therapy and very differently to how speech therapists view it. And especially in that first year, it's really important that you have access to an SLT that can provide that supervision for you. Also, I think it's quite tempting to go and work in a school because they'll provide you access to all this additional training. However, what I would say in your first NQP year, because our degree is so intense, what you really want to do is consolidate what you've already learned. So that's one thing to really consider. For us, I think one of the massive advantages is that all of our staff come back to the office virtually or physically in normal times, but virtually they have a team of SLTs to come back to. And those informal conversations are so crucial to developing your skills. So that's the one caveat that I would add. But yes, you definitely can. You definitely can. So the question is, what do you love or dislike about your role? So I absolutely love seeing change and helping others to reach their goal. That's a thumbs up for you. and I don't mean just the service users, the staff. I really, really get an absolute joy, and all of our management team get an absolute joy seeing our therapists achieve things that they didn't think they could achieve. Now, our way of working is very, very different, and what we use this term safe risk. So we ask you to be brave and go try things that you might think that you're not going to be able to do. But it's a very safe environment because your therapist, your clinician will anchor that and will ask you to come back and discuss it and analyze how it went and reflect on it. And that's why it's safe. But that is an important part of helping you to become autonomous. What we've found, and we've done this many ways, what we found is that if we provide too much support and supervision, then actually that therapist never becomes independent and we're almost holding them back. And obviously, if there's not enough, then that causes a lot of stress. So I think as an organization, I hope that we've got it right. And the next bit is dislike. What do you dislike? Now, I really honestly thought very, very long and hard about this. And I can't think of anything that I absolutely dislike about the role. I still feel like there's so much I'm learning every day. And I've been at this for must be coming up to about 20 plus years, maybe. And I feel there's so much to learn. And if you are not ready to continuously develop your skills and knowledge, then speech therapy really isn't for you, because it's such a new profession and the evidence is constantly changing. So as an organization, for us, we have this constant upskilling of our own knowledge, and it's something that we really want to instill in all of our staff, because the more our knowledge grows, the better the quality therapy that we can provide. And the evidence has to inform the delivery. That's really important. But I will take that question back and I will ask some of our NQPs to see what they like. I think I would say that a lot of them would say they love the client-facing time, but they probably don't enjoy the non-client facing activities like admin as much. Okay, so now, hopefully, the next question is a good one, because hopefully by now, some of you will be towards the end of your course and you'll be looking at applying for jobs and you'll be wanting some interview tips. Okay, so the next one is about interview tips. But before I move on to that next question, does anybody else have any other questions? Nope. Okay, so interview tips. Right, so first things first, guys. A series of experiments by Princeton psychologists found that it takes 1/10 of a second to form an impression of a stranger. 1/10 of a second, that's literally tiny. And that longer exposure doesn't significantly alter those impressions. So like it or not, judgment based on appearance plays a powerful role in how we treat others. and how we get treated ourselves. So just remember, the first impressions do count, and your first impression isn't necessarily when you turn up at the interview. It could be the interactions that you have prior to even attending an interview. So just be aware of that. And for us as an organization, we have a lot of respect for every single member of our team and have a high expectation that whether you're an admin or you're a CAL or an SLT, you're all treated equally. So just be aware that that's really, really important. So be prepared to learn about the organization. Now, we've worked so hard to build the organization, and it's great that that people come to interviews and they know something about us and about our journey. Our interview panel can tell if you just want a job. And it's better to be honest. We're ideally looking for people that want to stay with us and grow with us. That way you'll enjoy that. But sometimes you do just need a job. Just be aware of how you present why you're there, and the more you know about the company or the organization, it shows that you're already interested, and it helps to form that meaningful connection. How about interview tips? Prepare. Now, one of the strategies that I like to use in interviews, because I'm not very good at interviews, and I like to take time to quickly make a few notes before I respond to my answer, and that's an acceptable strategy. However, don't take too long. And I have interviewed where people wanted to write the exact question verbatim, and that leaves the interview panel just waiting and doesn't inspire confidence. So making a few notes, absolutely acceptable, and that helps keep your nerves in check and helps you plan what it is you want to say, because we all perform differently under stress. So that's a good tip. Right, so we have a question here. What other opportunities to grow within ChatterBug? Actually, that was on my next question. So good timing for that question. So within the organization, I'm just going to talk about the clinical aspect of our organization. So we have two clinical arms. We have the APs, which are our advanced practitioners, and we have the seniors. Now, the APs, these are our clinical experts, and they will generally have an area of specialism. However, part of their role is to help maintain the quality of the care that we provide, and they're expected to be able to research areas and advise and help inform decision and the delivery. So although they might have a specialist area, the idea is that APs are good at scouring, searching, and churning out knowledge and translating that in a way that it makes sense to everybody else. So they're good at holding knowledge and researching and informing practice and delivery. And the hope is that next year, I think we're going to have our first highly specialist role who's going to oversee our APs and actually look at developing a research arm, because that's something that we're very interested in. And then we have our seniors, and the role of the seniors is to take more of a line management responsibility. So they help coach and mentor new staff, and are involved in the strategic planning of the business, and they work very closely with the business team. So those are the two roles. So you would start off as an SLT, and in your first NQP year, we ask you to focus on your competencies. But we always say, communicate with your line manager what areas of specialism you have, because it's based, we're continuously evolving and developing as a young organization, so new opportunities are always created. So hopefully that answers that question. So we have another question here. So following on from the interview tips from qualified SL, do you have any tips for interview for the course? Specifically for MSCs? Yes, actually. So we have been involved in carrying out some entry to the degree. So obviously your actual application is a key part of that. If you can show that you have a good understanding of what speech therapy is, because I have read applications where it's quite apparent that they don't. So make sure that you actually really understand what speech therapy is. If you can show that you've gained experience in speech within that field, that definitely adds to it. But in this next generation of speech and language therapists, we're looking for people who have, particularly for MSCs, that people who've had relevant experience, whether that's a life experience or work experience, and how they think they can apply that knowledge to the application of speech therapy. So psychology, if you have a psychology degree, how have you used that psychology degree, and how do you think that psychology degree will help you in speech therapy? If you're a parent of children with SLCN, how has that experience going to help you inform how you practice as a speech language therapist? Those are the kind of things that we're looking for. We're looking for people that have experience in terms of good established ways of managing their own well-being. We look for this at interview as well. So, are you a rounded person that is able to or has well-established strategies in terms of managing yourself? And particularly for MSCs, would be looking at people that have well-established learning patterns, because it's quite a fast-paced degree. So, Anna, I hope those answer some of your question. But if I haven't fully answered your question, please do pop another question in there. What to include in applications, actually, it was one of the questions. So talk about your experience. We're not just looking at placement experience, as it's so variable depending on where you have your placement, but your other experience, your other work experience that you've had, and how you feel that will make you a good employee and make you more resilient. So particularly with NQPs, we're looking at that resilience. And if you have work-life experience, that will work in your favor. We have had in the past, obviously, I myself went from school, college, university, and had and worked in between university. But it's quite nice. So having a full-time job is very different from having a part-time job. So it's quite nice to be able to see someone who's had some experience of being in work. And finally, I think my final comment, I think I'm going to wrap it up because I've been talking for about 42 minutes. And if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to wrap it up, and then that gives you an opportunity to quickly think of any questions that you might have. So I'm going to be completely honest with you that you have to be prepared that for the first 6 months post-qualification in your first job is that you won't have a life. It's really, really tough. And I feel that is the best thing to do is be honest. It is tough. It's not easy. However, you will get through it, and you can get through it because so many of us have. And when you do, after that first 6 months, it gets so much easier. And that's because you have a bit of a flow, you have a bit of a pattern, you understand where things are and how to access things. It's all of those things that make the first job. In any job, the first 3 months are hard because you're learning about the job. So give yourself that flack and be prepared that for the first 6 months, you might have to write off a little bit of your social life, but it's not forever, and it does get easier. Be open and be honest with yourself and your manager, and talk to the team. Don't be quick to blame the job. The job is always going to be the same, and the grass isn't greener. I've seen this so many times with NQPs where they'll jump between jobs thinking it's going to get easier the next place they go to, but it doesn't. And I've seen a lot of them that end up eventually leaving the profession. It's the same. It's the same level of pressure wherever you go, because it's a job where we're it requires a lot of energy, and it requires a lot of thinking, and it requires a lot of passion, and all of those things are draining, but so much more rewarding. If you stick with it, you'll be rewarded tenfold, and I can promise you of that, because it's such a satisfying job. And The key here is finding a team that you can fit into and you feel comfortable with, because it's your team that will bolster you, and it's the team that will carry you and will make it that more worthwhile, and that will make that time tolerable. So just be aware of that. So I have got a few more questions. That's my final point on that. But is it worth doing a master's on top of the undergraduate degree? If so, would you recommend doing a master's straight after the undergrad degree, or getting a few years experience in the first job? I would say get that experience, because there is so many people I know that once they've completed the degree, it's a bit like running to the finishing line and you're like, made it. And I've had friends myself who said, two of them actually that I can think of off the top of my head, who said never going back to university again. Both went on to do a PhD. So, but they did go and get that work experience behind them. And I think, for me personally, that would have been the right way. You really need, if you're going to go and do a master's, you really need to know, related to the profession, that you're committed to this profession. It's a lot of time to invest. So I think get that experience, even if you want to go and do a master's, which we all have also had, where people get the experience and they go off and do the master's. So yeah, that would be my personal advice. Do you offer any voluntary opportunities for people wanting to apply for SLT degree? So this question comes up quite a lot. And one of the things that, because we're so passionate about training speech and language therapists, we are one of the largest placement providers. Like in between now and November, I mentioned that we provided about 20 plus placements, which obviously places quite a lot of pressure on our team. They absolutely love it and it brings its joy. But everything that we do at ChatterBug, we always put 110 in. So at present, we only offer additional voluntary experiences for people that are already on the degree. But what we have done this year is, we introduced this last year actually, is an SLT information day. And I would suggest that if you're interested in finding out a bit more about the degree, is come along to our SLT information day. I believe the next one is in the summer. So please come along to that. And you can email our office, which is office@chatter-bug.com, and they will be able to put your name on the waiting list for that. So could you give a bit of a breakdown about the SLT related career paths that aren't education centered? Yep, particularly interested in the acute trauma related injuries, sort of side of things. Yeah, definitely. So again, very, very interesting question and very interesting field. And I think this is why I absolutely love speech therapy, because you can have a whole wealth of careers all within one profession, because they are so different. Now, what I would say is that if you are very interested in specializing in something like acute trauma, is get a basic foundation in your first NQP year, because try and look for a job that will give you exposure to a full range of clients. Now, in our organization, because we have our schools, and we have our private clients, we see, and within our schools, we have special schools, we have language units and resource bases. We see a full range of specialisms. And within our private caseload, we have really, really complex clients. And I'm talking head injury and tracheostomy. So we see the full range. But what it does, your first job, if it's broad, it gives you a taster. And we've had speech and language therapists who join us saying, I absolutely love stammering, and that's the only thing I really want to do. And within the first few months, they realize actually, oh, I've never thought about that. So it's really important to really get that experience. But then I would say, if you get into your first role that allows you a broad range of experience, it doesn't stop you from declaring your interest and building your knowledge. Because if your ultimate target is that you want to get to an acute role, but you can't get a job in that acute role straight away, then it's an absolute waste of time if you're not building your knowledge. So build your knowledge and look for those extra opportunities, and communicate that with your line manager. This is what we say to all of our staff. When you find that thing that you really absolutely love, let your line managers know. Show your line managers what additional research and reading that you've done. When opportunities come up, offer to take a lead in those areas, offer to form those connections where you feel that there aren't. Be solution focused is what I would say. Managers absolutely love that. Come to us with a plan, come to us with suggestions of what it is that you want to explore. So this year, as an organization, because we have quite a few therapists that are really interested in MDT assessments, we're launching our first MDT clinic. And we'll be launching that later this year. We're also launching sensory feeding groups because we have a couple of therapists that are really interested in that specialism as well. So as an organization, we're very open to ideas. It's obviously, we have to think about the need and the business, need for it as well. But we're always looking to explore. So it very much is about your first job, and if that's what you're aiming for, I would say look for a role that will accommodate that passion in you. I hope that answers that question, Jack. Any other questions? No. Okay, so just a couple of things. I do have some slides that I can send to you, and the slides just give you a little bit more information about our organization structure and about us as an organization. There is, hold on. We have a feedback form that if you complete this feedback form, then you will be able to it will give us your details and we can send you out the slide, but also it's quite useful for us to know that we've covered all the questions that you like, or if there's any suggestions on future topics that we can do. And I really hope this has been useful and helpful and helps set you up along your journey to this absolutely rewarding career. And if there's anything else, follow us on social media. I'm sure you're already there. There is an NQP information day coming up as well, and again that will be that will go into pretty much what I've discussed, but in a bit more detail. So please do have a look out for that. We do actually have some vacancies. So if you are looking for your first NQP role, all of these are available on our website. So please do apply. And I think, I think that's everything from me today. Does anybody else want to share any comments or have any final burning questions? Okay, so I put those in the chat for you, the feedback form, social media, and our job openings in order to gain necessary experience for MSc applications. That's a good question. I would definitely go to any SLT information day that anybody's putting on. So come along to ours in the summer. And you're currently working at a SEND school, but I would... It sounds as though you're gaining quite a lot of experience. If it's the pediatric population that you're looking to work with, that's great. You're in the right position. I would say if you have a speech and language therapist coming in, see if you can get involved in some of their sessions if you haven't done so already. And any additional training you can do that is specific for children with complex needs, if that's what you're interested in, then keep a lookout for those, because that will also look good and give you great experience. Right, so thank you very much, everybody, for being so lovely contributors. I have absolutely enjoyed talking to you all and answering some of your questions. Really, keep in touch with ChatterBug and let us know how you progress along your journeys. And I wish you all the best and hope to see some of you on the other side. Take care, stay safe, and speak to you all soon.